Hey guys, welcome back to Enlightened Turtle, the former Enlightened Turtle should I say. In this video we're going to be doing a reading from L.A. Waddell's book, which is the links between Phoenicia and the Britons, the Scots and Anglo-Saxons. And I'm not going to read this full chapter, I'm just going to touch on like what I'd said in the last video about some of the connections. Now this is going to be linguistical and pictographic regarding stone circles, dolmens, things like that, and I will be screenshotting the images from the book and placing those images in the video along with the footnotes, so people can actually take a look at the footnotes themselves along with the pictures. Now I'm not going to read the full chapter of this book because it goes on for quite a bit. I don't want the video to be too long. It seems like some of these videos have been getting a bit out of hand lately. I need to streamline them a little bit better, so I apologise for that. So without further ado, let's get straight into this one.
I'm conquering the spirit, I'm busting through the ceiling.
Chapter 18. Prehistoric cut markings on circles, rocks and etc. in Britain, and circles on ancient British coins, monuments and invocations to sun god in Sumerian cipher script by early Hitto-Phoenicians. So again, it's going to be the connection, some of the pictographic stuff, some linguistical stuff, and it's kind of all tied into this sun worship. Obviously in Egypt you've got Ra, in Sumer, I don't actually know off the top of my head who the sun god is. Obviously the prime god, you think of Anu, father of Enki and Enlil. Over in ancient Greece you had like Helios, which is a form of the sun and was worshipped as a sun god. But the primary one in Greece, and as we've looked at with the Trojan War conflict stuff in Britain and that, is the god Apollo, who was highly venerated by the Trojans. And we won't discuss it in this video, but there's a connection between Apollo and an island out past the Pillars of Hercules, potentially where Apollo was founded or birthed, if you will. It's like where the creation of Apollo took place, which some have theorised could be Britain. But yeah, we won't, like I say, go into that too much in this video. Disclosing decipherment and translations by identical cut marks on Hitto-Sumerian seals and Trojan amulets with explanatory Sumerian script, and Hitto-Sumerian origins of god names, Javeh or Yoveh, which is like Yov, Indra or Indri, and Thor of the gods, Saint Andrew, Earth goddess Maya or May, some Gaia, and three fates of English names of numerals. So like I say, there's quite a lot packed into this chapter, so I'm not going to read it all, so maybe we'll come back to it. Before proceeding to examine the mass of new evidence for the former widespread prevalence of sun worship amongst the ancient Katai Barats or Britons, who erected the prehistoric stone circles in Britain, and amongst their descendants down to the Christian period, it is desirable here to see what light, if any, our newly found Hitto-Sumerian origin of the Britons may throw up, and prehistoric cut markings which are sometimes found carved upon stones in these circles, in funeral barrows upon some standing stones, dolmens and stone cist coffins, and on rocks near ancient British settlements. He says Britain a lot in this without the plural for like Britons or British, and it was written a while ago, so some of it's like you've got to kind of navigate as you're reading it. So that'd be rocks near ancient Briton or British settlements, over a great part of the British Isles. See figure 30. Again, I shall place the images from the book on screen for you guys. And in Scandinavia, which is interesting, and other parts of Europe and the Levant, associated with megalith culture, and whose origin, carvers, and meaning of the cup markings have now been completely forgotten. These cup markings have long been the subject of many varied surmises, adamantly or patently inappropriable, associated with the megalithic culture, and whose origin, carvers, and meaning of the cup markings have now been completely forgotten. These markings have long been the subject of many varied surmises, admittedly or patently improbable, and especially so the latest theory that they are merely decorations. So I will put figure 30 in there. I just want to touch on what I was saying there when I mentioned Scandinavia is interesting, because off that back of the last video, obviously I've been looking into Crete a little bit more, obviously, which was the Minoans, then the Mycenaeans, but that's when the Dorians came in, and there was this new migration into the southern part of Greece that pushed out and all this kind of stuff, bringing language and all that. So I looked into Crete a little bit more, and I've got a lot of interesting stuff I want to drop down on Crete, which harkens back to a previous video that we made, where Herodotus mentions the wine-coloured water, the opposite to the Aegean really. The Aegean's like nice crystal blue water. But like I say, we'll come to that in another video. As I observed that many of the ancient Britons pre-Roman coins also were studded with circles, single and concentric, in groups or clusters. See figure in the next chapter. I'll put that on the screen for you. Which generally resembled the prehistoric cup markings, and that some of the ancient Greco-Phoenician coins of Cilicia and Syro-Phoenicia contained analogous groups of circles associated with the same divinities as in the British coins, and that many of the whorls, as in like whales, like spirals, of terracotta dug up from the ruins of ancient Troy by Schliemann, which is over in Hesarlik, and which I had found were amulets, also contained numerous depressed cup marks like the British, in definite groups, and associated with the solar swastika or sun crosses, and containing Sumerian solar writing, hitherto unobserved and explanatory of the cups, and connecting the British cup markings with the Trojans, and so confirming the British chronicle tradition. I therefore turned to the sacred seals of the Hitto-Sumerians to find if they might supply a clue to the origin and the meaning of the Trojan and British cup markings. So again, I'll put these images on screen, and you can see the sun has this spiral pattern with arms coming off it, and then you've got the swastikas, and you've got certain circles, also crosses on these cup markings and on coins. I believe these are coins. Yeah. They then found that the ancient sacred seals and the amulets of the Hitto-Sumerians from the 4th millennium BC onwards figured in similar groups of circles, some of them ringed and associated with the sun and swastika. See figure 32, which I'll put on the screen now. And from their repeated reoccurrence attached to the figures of a particular god or gods, it seemed clear that they were used to designate that particular god or gods. See figure 33. Put it on the screen now. Further examination confirmed this. It thus became evident that these circles, arranged singly and in groups of specific numbers, formed a recognized method of distinguishing particular gods or aspect of the One, the universal God, and his angels, amongst the Hitto-Sumerians. So that's in this figure 33 that you're probably looking at right now. And I'm not too sure who this is. Let's see if it says in the notes. Circles as diagnostic cipher marks of Sumerian and Chaldean deities in the trial of Adam, the son of God, i.e. I-A-H-V-E-H, or Yov, or Indra. So again, you're seeing a conflation of the names as the names of the gods were to different cultures. In order to understand the meanings and origin of the religious values attached to the Sumerians, by the Sumerians to the circles and their numbers, it is necessary to refer to the system of numeration invented and used by the Sumerians, which is admittedly the bias of our own modern system of numerical notation. All the more so this is necessary, as I find that many of the names of our numerals in English and in Aryan languages generally are also derived from the Sumerian names for these numbers. Although this fact has not hitherto been noticed, this therefore affords still further evidence for the Sumerian origin of the Aryans and of the Britons and Scots and Anglo-Saxons in particular. Simple numerals were written by the early Sumerians by strokes, such as 1 stroke for 1, 2 strokes for 2, and 3 strokes for 3, and so on up to 9. A system which has survived in the Roman numerals up to 4, and on the dials of modern clocks and watches, but when engraved on stones, these lower numeral strokes were at first formed by the easier processes of drilling, by the same dual drill worked by bowstring fiddle, thus forming circular holes, which is just a circle. The so-called cups, the numeral 1 was called by the Sumerians Anna, Un, or As, which is now seen to be the Sumerian origin of our English 1. Scots Anna, Anglo-Saxons An, and Old English Un, Gothic EIN and AINS, Scandinavian EEN, Greeks OIOS, Oinos, Latin Unus, French Un, whilst As is now disclosed to be the Sumerian origin of our English Ace, Old English As, Greek EIS, Ease, Latin As, AS, or As, Unity. And it is of great significance that this word As, which the Sumerians also used for God as unity, is the usual title As or Asa for the father god in the Gothic epics, the Eddas, which, as we have seen, are now believed to have been largely composed in ancient Britain. You'd have to read more of this book to understand that, but as he just said there. Similarly, the numeral 2 was called by Sumerians Tab or Dab, which is now disclosed as the Sumerian origin of our English word two. Scots and Anglo-Saxons Twa, Gothic Tva or Tve, Scandinavian Tva or two, and the Greek and Latin duo, Sanskrit Deva with a potential B, and V or W being often interchangeable dialectally. As we have seen, the Sumerian reading for 3 is uncertain, but the numeral 4 reads Ga and Gador, which thus equate with the Indo-Persian Ka, Latin Quartor, French Quatre, Sanskrit Kator, Gaelic Kaithor, and our English quart or quarter. 6 is as, and in Akkad, Sisu. 7 is Sisina, or 6 plus 1, and Sibi in Akkad. And 8 is Usu, which equates with the Breton Aik, Ais, and fairly with the Sanskrit Asta, and Scot and Gaelic Acht. And the Sumerian names of other numerals may also prove, on re-examination, to be more or less identical with Aryan. The occult values attached to certain numbers by the Sumerians through ideas associated with particular numbers was the origin of the mystical use of numbers in the ancient religions of the East and Greece, referred to by Herodotus and other writers as current amongst the adept in the mysteries of the Magians, Pythagoras, Eleusis, and later amongst the Gnostics, and surviving in some measure in religion to this present day. Thus one as unity, and first was secondly defined by the Sumerians as complete and perfect, and thus also represents God, heaven, and the earth. When formed by a circle or cut mark, it especially represents the sun and sun god, who are also represented by a circle with a central dot in Egyptian hieroglyphs. Different sizes of circles and concentric circles and semicircles or carved wedges had different numerals and mystic values attached to them, as shown in the accompanying figure, and all of these forms and groups of, I will show you that figure, circles are found in the prehistoric cut marks in the British Isles. This early method of numerical notation by circles was especially used by the Sumerians in their religion to designate God and different aspects of the Godhead and heaven, earth and death, and in the later polytheistic phase to distinguish a few different divinities, as we have seen in the sacred seal in figure 33 on screen now. Thus, while a single circle or numeral for one was like the sign of the rayed sun itself, used to designate God at first cause, the sun and sun god, and latterly gods in general and heaven, the higher numbers in definite groups of small circles designated different members of the Godhead, and as recorded in the bilingual Sumerio-Akkad glossaries. With the aid of these circle marks, we are able to identify the Hitto-Sumerian god names and the seals and tablets with their names of the leading Aryan gods of classic Greece and Rome, and of the Indian Vedas, of the Gothic Eddas, and of the ancient Britons, as inscribed on their pre-Roman coins and monuments, and not frequently accompanied in the latter by the same groups of circle marks. In this table, for the convenience of printing, an ordinary O is typed to represent the perfect circle of the originals. O equals I, or 10, or Io. A equals Anna, as, U, Un, etc., which is like the different languages there. God as Monad, Anna, the One, Lord Father. God, I, A, Ea, or Bel, or In, Duru, I'm guessing that's supposed to be like Indra. Sun God, Mas, or Mashtu, and Hor Mazd, as in Huru Mazda. Earth, heaven, and the sun. O equals 2, or 20. Tab, tap, dab, man, min, nis. All different words there, sorry. Or just O, sun god, as companion of God, also called Buzer. Ra, or Zal, equals sol, also Nas Astaya in Hittite and Sanskrit, and the origin of Disocrides, frequent on Britain monuments and coins. 000, or the three perfect circles, equals 3, or 30. Es, Usu, moon, moon god, sin, also death, bat, or mutu, and earth, mutu. Sib, or batu, or fate, equals the three syllables, or fate, which, to be honest, makes you think of the three muses that were in Hades. You know, there's a story that there's a few of the kings in the Iliad and stuff. They had to speak to the muses, and it was them who gave the prophecy that Troy would fall after a 10-year conflict. Excuse me. And there's a lot of connections there. 4 perfect circles, or 40. Gar, Gador, Nin, or Mador, or 00, 2 circles, which doesn't make sense, that. Mother goddess, Gar, equals Gaia, or Maha, equals Maiha. Maya, which is M-A-Y-A, or just May, and numerically equals 4 quarters, totally and multitude. 3 perfect circles equals 5. I want to show you the photograph of this, and you've probably seen it on the screen now. Where it says this equals 5, I'm guessing I should just add all these perfect circles together. So that'd be 5 perfect circles equals 5, or 50. Ia, Ninu, Tasia, which is archangel messenger. Tas, Aya, which is the archangel messenger. Tas, or Tesu, man god of Induru, is son of the sun, son of Aya. Merodach, or Marduk. Ilil is Adar, also his temple. So that would be, so you'd have like Merodach, Ilil, or Marduk Adar, which would be son of Aya, also his temple. 6 perfect circles as Akkad Sisu, sea storm, god or spirit. Mer, Muru, which is M-U-R-U, or Marutu. Akkad, Roman, Adad, and Sanskrit, Maruta. 7 perfect circles is 7 or 70. Sesu, Imin, Akkad, Siba, field of Tas, or capital city. Himin, or heaven. So again, you've got field of Tas, capital city, equals Himin, or heaven of the gods, and 7th heaven. So the number 7 and the 7th heaven, you've got 7 days of creation. You know, I'm guessing this all ties into numerology, and it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than what's just in this book here that's being presented. 8 perfect circles equals 8, or 80. Usa, field of Ts. 8 was the number of Dionysus. Interesting. 9 equals 90. Ilim, he-goat, god Elim. Bel, Ensaka, or Enlil, or Dara, was the number of Prometheus. So that's interesting, that Ilim, which is I-L-I-M, is the he-goat, is the god Elim, which it doesn't say specifically. And then you've got Bel, and then you've got Ensaka, or Enlil. So Ilim is Enlil, which is interesting because obviously, as we know, in the Iliad, it's called ilium, so that's quite close, that. And then you've got Prometheus, who's the one who, in Greek mythology, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the one who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind. Now, fire is, I've seen some people mention that the fire is allegorical, and that it wasn't the fire that he stole, it was the wisdom, and the wisdom to be able to create fire, the wisdom to be able to forge, almost like the hammer and anvil. And that goes back like several thousand years to when man started. Excuse me, let me take a sip of this. Apologies. That kind of ties back into when man first started smithing and turning the rocks around them into stone, into metals. Obviously, you had the copper, bronze, iron, and that kind of stuff, those different periods, but it all started somewhere. And to be honest, I'm probably going to leave it there because I don't know how long this video is, but yeah, it's already half an hour long. Like I say, I didn't want to make this video too long. I wanted to try and keep them short and sweet, but like I said, it's very difficult because there's so much stuff to talk about. And as I was going through that, I had to bite my tongue because there was things I wanted to say. But yeah, like I say, we are going to be doing some more readings from this book. The next video that's going to come down the line is going to be regarding Crete and a closer look into the island of Crete, where it was in relation to a Trojan conflict in the west of Europe rather than in the east. And there's a lot of interesting things you need to take into context. Most specifically, I'll give you a couple of nuggets, is the Odysseus, when he leaves Crete, he talks of leaving behind him the mountains of snow, which is, you know, it's indications of cold, and he makes reference to his cloak as well, like not having to wear his cloak all the time. And also, as I mentioned towards the start of the video, the dark water, the wine-coloured water. We're going to look into these things mentioned by Herodotus and break them down a little bit further. And as I can see, this video is now just past over half an hour. I'm going to leave it there. I'd like to thank everyone for stopping by. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And yeah, catch you in the next video. Peace.